Okay, so the participants that are on right now, you know me. My name's Caitlin. Hello, happy Monday. If you're watching this later or you haven't practiced with me before, my name's Caitlin. I'm so happy to be here with you. So this is our first Monday afternoon, our first new schedule. So this is going to be fun. I'm going to invite you to come to a cross-legged position of your choice on your mat. If that doesn't feel comfortable and you want to come up onto the knees, hips to heels, that's fine too. And if that's still not comfortable, you can come to lie on your back. And if you do that, we'll just keep knees up to the ceiling, soles of the feet rooted firmly down into the mat, so that we are keeping some activity in the body. Otherwise, we will close our eyes and take a few minutes to drop in, start connecting with our breath, inhaling in through the nose and down into the belly. Exhale, belly button draws back to the spine. Maybe you sit up a little taller. You can always come to sit on top of a block or a blanket or a pillow to give the hips some elevation over the knees. So we come into a meditation, or start our practices with a meditation as a form of switching our hat. So we may have many different ways to do that, some healthy, some unhealthy, but there's always that moment between transitioning between roles, whether it's coming home from work and shifting into being a parent, whether it's being around friends or being alone in your home and then needing to shift into a work environment and so on. So different environments call for different hats. So this is our way of notifying the mind and preparing the breath for our yoga practice. Anything that's popping up in the mind, maybe a to-do list, your work emails that you need to get back to after practice. Maybe you're thinking about what you're going to make for dinner tonight, or maybe it's something more serious, a situation or conversation that's been weighing on your mind. Allow that thing to be placed to the side so that you can fully show up. You chose to be here today, you chose to get onto your mat, and so let's use this time to practice being present. Let's take 3 more full breath cycles here. So full inhales and full exhales, seeing if you can make your exhales longer than your inhales. And after your last exhale, we'll come to bring the legs out in front of us. So first we're going to start legs out long. We sit up nice and tall. You can move the fleshy part of the butt off to the side to really feel your sits bones rooting down into the ground if that feels good. Otherwise, we're rooted down through the heel, rooted down through the tops of the thighs. We bring a lightness in the pelvis. So being active in the legs is going to help us lift out of the pelvis, lengthening the spine nice and tall. Toes are pointed up towards the sky. Shoulders are drawn away from the ears. Shoulder blades are together and melting down the back. So with our alignment in the spine, you may hear other teachers or myself say that we bring the head over the heart and then the heart over the pelvis. But what does that actually mean? So we're going to be getting back to basics a little bit today and talking about some alignment. So head over heart, heart over pelvis. The ears are in line with the shoulders. Shoulders are in line with the hip bones. And it's as simple as that. So we sit here, staff pose, Dandasana, inhale. Full exhale. Feeling the energy maybe waking up in the spine, the danda. And we inhale. Both arms are coming up overhead on the inhale. And exhale, we start to drape the belly, chest, and forehead down towards the legs. So if that seems impossible, just like we do in our standing forward fold, you can bend the knees and bending from the hips. So we bring the belly forward towards the thighs and then drape chest and forehead down towards the legs. You can clasp the outsides of the feet. You can bring wrist to toes and drape the palm over the soles of the feet. You can grab the outside of the calves or maybe even the backs of the knees, whatever feels good for you. And we drop the forehead and the crown towards the earth. Bring a mindfulness to your legs, your hips. Maybe you've lost the connection there and are no longer bending from the hips. So in order to straighten this out, imagine pulling your femur bone, your thigh bone, back in space, back into the hip socket and locking it into place. Doing that, you may feel this shift, this slight shift forward in the abdomen and the pelvis, allowing you to deepen your forward fold. So seated forward fold, Paschimottanasana, we would consider this a mild inversion where we're bringing the head below the heart space. So we're lowering blood pressure, lowering stress levels, activating the parasympathetic nervous system, lessening or easing symptoms of anxiety and depression. Take one more big inhale here. Really feel the skin of the low back expanding on the inhale. And softening on the exhale. Stay for the inhale. And exhale, we activate the core, pulling belly button back to spine and gently roll back up to our staff pose. Left foot is going to come into the midline, so heel to pelvis. We're active in the left toes when we do this. Activation, bringing the toes in the direction of the shin. We are activating all the ligaments and muscles around the knee and therefore protecting that joint. We, just like in our forward fold, we're pressing down through the heel of the right foot, pressing down through the top of the thigh. Both hip bones are rooted to the ground. Right hand comes either to the inside of the right knee, the outside of the right knee. You can clasp the right toes if you have that range, or drop the forearm right next to the inside of the right calf. Belly button is shining out towards the from the midline. Chest is open toward the midline. Left arm comes out in space. We inhale, left arm comes up to the ceiling. And maybe we reach the left arms over toward the right toes. The left arms, you only have one. You know what I mean. Got this big side body stretch. We can feel this in the shoulder all the way down to the low back, the left glute, the hip, the groin. Stay for the inhale. And exhale, we activate belly to spine and draw ourselves back up through center. Let's take it to the other side. Left leg shoots out long. Right leg comes to the midline. Don't be alarmed or frightened if this side feels different. Maybe you can feel the left glute lifting up off of the ground because it's really tight in the front of the thigh or the groin. That's okay. Maybe the right knee is giving you some red flags, some warning signs. You can always back off of this by bringing right leg out strong or long or out to the side, coming into a V instead, or you can always prop up a blanket or a block underneath that right knee. So left hand or arm finds its placement, which may be a different spot than it was on the other side. And we inhale, right arm up towards the ceiling. And maybe we send it over towards the left toes. We're firm in that left leg, our foundation. Hips stay nice and heavy, rooting the hip bones, the sits bones down into the earth. Stay for the inhale. And exhale draws you back through center. Right leg is going to open into a V. So a couple of options here. You can bend the knees coming up onto the heels. If you do this, we're pressing down firmly through the heels. We're activating, pulling that femur bone into the hip socket, bringing the pelvis forward so that the hips are right in line with the legs. Or we keep the legs out long and you come up onto a blanket or a block. We're only going to be here for a minute. So we're going to lean forward. So pulling the femur back into the hip socket, we bring the pelvis and the abdomen forward. Maybe you place the hands on the ground and we stay here for 3 breaths. If you'd like to try and play around, you can always bring the hands to the calves, maybe sliding down to the ankles. Maybe you bring pointer finger and middle finger around the big toe for a toe bind. Maybe you bring hands to the inner arches. for the outsides of the feet. We're bending from the hips, spine stays straight. So you need to find whatever position allows your spine to stay straight, and we gaze out in front of us. One more breath cycle here. Inhale. And full exhale, belly button draws back to spine as we walk ourselves back up to a seated position. Legs are going to cross as we roll through into tabletop, or you can swing the legs off to the side and come through that way. Kind of shed some layers here before we get moving. So coming into table, wrists are right underneath the shoulders. Knees are right underneath the hips. We're pressing down firmly into the tops of the feet for our stability. We're pressing down into the fingertips of each hand with the fingers spread nice and wide, like you're trying to grip a basketball. Elbow creases are shining forward. Belly button draws back to the spine. We dome through the chest cavity, gazes straight down. Let's take a few breaths here, really rooting down into our foundation. And on your next inhale, we'll drop the belly, tail lifts up to the sky. We open the chest, gaze is forward. So we're just going to pause here. We're pressing away from the yoga mat. So we're keeping the ears away from the shoulders. Shoulder blades are pinching together to open the chest. Exhale, we round through, starting at the tail. So tail starts to curl like we're bringing the tail towards the belly button. Again, we press away from the yoga mat, lifting out of the shoulder joint, exaggerating the doming effect of the chest cavity. Abdomen is active, pulling up to the spine. Pull, inhale, drop the belly, open the chest. Exhale, round through. Inhale, drop the belly, open the chest. Exhale, we round through. Inhale, drop the belly, open the chest. Pressing away from the yoga mat, protecting the shoulder joints. Exhale, we round through. Inhale brings you back to tabletop. Big toes come together. We open the knees as wide as the yoga mat or as wide as is comfortable, and we sink the hips back onto the heels. Inhale to look forward. Exhale, we start to crawl and melt, belly, chest, forehead, down to the mat. Arms extend out long towards the front of the mat, or you can always stack palm over palm, bringing the forehead onto the tops of the hands. If that's also not comfortable for you, you can walk the elbows out in space, bringing the palms together and drawing the hands right below, or excuse me, right behind the neck, right at the base of the skull. We stay for the inhale, and exhale, we lift the forehead off the mat, bringing the chest slightly off the mat as we reach the right arm underneath the left armpit, dropping down onto the right shoulder and the right ear. Left arm can either stay extended out towards the front of the mat, or you can bring the hand right in front of the face, creating a 90-degree angle at the elbow. Or you can bring the right hand to the low back for a greater opening in the chest. Or maybe you wrap the left hand all the way around for a bind, bringing the palm to the top of the right thigh. Hips are heavy. We're breathing down into the belly. And we are putting a weight into the right hand. When we do this, we're again lifting out of that right shoulder joint. So we're not just dumping our weight into this shoulder, opening the chest. If you are in a bind, go ahead and unravel. We stay for the inhale. And exhale, we use the left hand pressing into the fingertips to bring ourselves out of our needle. And we take it to the other side. So right hand extends long, we look forward, left arm swings underneath the right armpit as we drop onto the left shoulder, left ear. Hips stay nice and heavy. If the hips are getting tired or this doesn't feel super great, you can always bring your legs up into a tabletop position. So hips staying right over the knees, and take your needle this way. So you've got options. We stay for the inhale. Exhale, we use our right hand to press back up, unraveling the left. Let's all meet in tabletop. So if you are in your extended child's pose, we press into the tops of the feet, claw through the fingertips to come back up into table. Toes curl down towards the mat. We stay for the inhale. Exhale, we're sending hips up high or downward facing dog. When you get there, pedal it out if you need to. Bending and straightening opposite leg. And then let's bring our attention to our alignment. Toes are turned ever so slightly in towards the midline, externally rotating the hips up towards the ceiling. We're pressing into the fingertips and the meaty part of the hand between the forefinger and the thumb, protecting the wrists. Elbow creases are shining towards each other, towards the front of the mat, widening the shoulder blades across the back, externally rotating the shoulders. We press away from the yoga mat with our hands, lifting out of that shoulder joint. Hips are up high, belly button is drawn back towards the spine to protect the low back, ribs are soft, ears are right next to the biceps. If the low back is rounding or really tight, you can always bend the knees to bring that integrity back into the spine. We stay for the inhale. Exhale, let's make our way to the top of the mat. You can get there however you'd like to. You can do one big step. You can take a crisscross walk. You can take a slow walk up on the tippy toes. Or if it's in your practice to hop, you can hop up to the top of the mat and we will meet in a forward fold. So when we're here, we're not locking the knees. We are straightening the legs if that feels good, or you have the option to bend the knees. We're just not locking the knees in place, creating damage to the hamstring. Got a slight micro bend in the knees. We're bending from the hip, pulling that femur up into the hip socket, bringing the torso forward. Dropping the crown down towards the earth. We can shake the head, yes, and no if that feels good. Maybe straightening one leg, bending the other. We're pressing down firmly into the soles of the feet, the inverted triangle underneath our feet as our base, our foundation. You can play around with spreading the toes wide, like we had the hands spread nice and wide in our tabletop. Stay for the inhale and exhale slowly. We start to activate through the midline, through the inner thighs, pulling the feet away from each other as we rise up to mountain. When we get there, check your alignment. Head over heart, heart over pelvis, ears over shoulders, shoulders over hips. Let's start with palms facing forward. So palms facing forward. When we do this, we're encouraging, because every single thing is connected. We're encouraging this external rotation of the shoulders, widening and spreading the pectoral muscles, literally opening the heart space. Shoulders are down away from the ears. Shoulder blades are pinched together and then melts down the back. We're active through the midline. Ribs are soft. Chin tucked slightly to the chest. Excellent. Let's inhale. Both arms come up overhead. We grab the right wrist with the left hand. Inhale to grow tall. Exhale, hips stay nice and heavy. We're firm in our foundation. As we exhale, bringing the right arm over to the left, side body stretch. Inhale, exhale, belly button to spine, draws us back through center as we take it to the other side. So right hand grabs left wrist. We inhale to grow tall. And exhale, we take the left arm over towards the right. Shining that left armpit out towards the front of the mat. Chest stays nice and open. Inhale and exhale, belly button draws back to spine. As we come back to center, let's release the left wrist, palms flip laterally as we float the arms back down to our sides. We inhale, arms come up overhead, palms kiss together. And on the exhale, knees bend as we bend from the hips, coming back into our forward fold. Inhale, we lift halfway, creating this figure 7 shape. So when we're here, legs are straight, we're firm in our foundation. Hips stay above the ankles, we're bending from the hip. Abdomen is engaged, protecting the low back. Hands can be either the tops of the thighs, the fronts of the shins, or fingers down on the mat. Shoulders are pulled down away from the ears, and then shoulder blades pinch together. So we're widening from the chest. Exhale, fold. Hands come down to the mat. I always tell you to do left foot first, right foot second to come into plank, but that's totally up to you. If it feels better or more natural to move from the other side first, that's fine. So we're in plank, top of a push-up. We're spiking the heels towards the back edge of the mat. Shoulders are right above the wrist, gaze is straight down, neck is long. Belly is engaged. We inhale, exhale, we shift forward on the toes and lower. This time we're going to lower all the way. Toes flip, hands stay right where they are. If you need to adjust, that's fine. However, we should be lowering the chest right in between the hands so that when we are down on the mat, the hands are right underneath the shoulders, right in line with the breastbone. We press down firmly through the tops of the feet. We engage the knees, slightly tilt the pelvis towards the earth. That all serves as our foundation. That slight tilt in the pelvis is going to firm up the glutes, but not squeeze them. We don't need to be squeezing them. We just want to have a firm foundation. Gaze is straight down. We inhale and exhale, pressing into our fingertips. We start to rise, lifting the chest, maybe the abdomen off the ground, bringing the arms into a more straightened position. Gaze is straight forward. Again, we pinch the shoulder blades together, widening and opening the chest. Inhale, exhale. We start to float down with control. So belly first, then chest, then forehead. Cool, let's do it again, right in the opposite direction. So inhale, elbows stay tight to the side body, as chest lifts, belly lifts, maybe low abdomen lifts, and then finally the head. Adjust, shoulders away from the ears, shoulder blades pinch together. Inhale. Exhale, we float back down with control. One more time, inhale. And exhale, float right back down. Beautiful. Toes curl under. We stay for the inhale, and exhale powers our movement right back up into plank. We stay for the inhale. Exhale, hips go up high. Downward facing dog. Take a breath if you need to. And on the exhale, we're stepping right foot up in between the hands. So if that means that you need to take a couple steps to get there, that's fine. We're going to keep the back leg elevated, but if that is something you don't want to do today, you always have the option to drop the back knee, either keeping the toes curled or bringing the top of the foot down to the mat. So we're here, we're in low lunge. Right knee is right above the right ankle. Belly comes towards that right thigh. Fingertips can be down on the mat, or you can have palms all the way down. Gaze is forward, neck is long, chest is open, bringing the shoulders down away from the ears. Shoulder blades pinch together. That back foot, we're spiking the heel of the back foot towards the back edge of the mat. Inhale and exhale, we press into that right foot, rising up into high lunge. So when we're here, it's really easy to let the pelvis kind of rock towards the back, or depending on your body type, rocking towards the front, or maybe we try to round through the shoulders to keep our balance. So we want to bring the pelvis again underneath the heart space, right underneath the head space. If you need to shorten up your stance to do that, that's fine. And then for balance, we're squeezing the inner thighs together. So there's this imaginary midline. Well, it's not imaginary, but you might not be able to see it in this plane of reality. That runs along your midline. So we're squeezing everything to that midline, helping to keep our balance. Gaze is forward, chest is open. We inhale, both arms come up overhead. We inhale to grow nice and tall. So you might feel this lift out of the pelvis, lengthening in the spine. Exhale, in as fluid a movement as you can, we pivot on the back foot, opening up to warrior two. So that front leg stays right where it started. We're only pivoting on the back foot. Back arch and front heel are in line with each other. Pelvis is right in line with the hips. Hips under heart, heart near head. Arms are right in line with the shoulders. Shoulders drop down away from the ears. We inhale, and on the exhale, lower body is staying exactly where it's at. We're not moving the lower body here. We are, though, dropping the back arm to the back leg, bringing the front arm either up towards the ceiling or towards the back edge of the mat. I know your legs are tired. Inhale and exhale. We're dropping or shifting, the weight of the torso towards the front, coming into our side angle. So we're going just in the opposite direction. Back arm either comes up towards the ceiling, towards the front of the mat. Front arm can be either hand down by the palm, forearm on the wrist, or if it's in your practice to take a bind, you can bring the right arm underneath the thigh, left over and around the low back to clasp the right fingers. Exhale, we power into that front leg, bringing us back up into warrior two. Inhale, and on the exhale, we windmill the arms back down, and at the same time, just as gracefully as we got into it, we pivot on the back foot, bringing the hands to frame the right foot on the mat. Inhale, exhale, we're drawing the right foot back to meet the left. Hips up high and downward facing dog. We're going to stay here for 3 breaths. You just did a lot for your legs. Sending the breath into the low back, into that right hip. Adjusting your alignment, elbow creases shining towards each other, towards the front of the mat. We press into the hands, into the fingers, lifting out of that shoulder joint. And here we go. We stay for the inhale. Exhale, left leg comes up in between the hands. We make our adjustments for low lunge. Left knee above the left ankle. We're spiking through the heel of the back foot towards the back edge of the mat. We're light on the fingertips, so we're not dumping our weight here, holding ourselves up. We're using our legs to hold us up, not our hands. Gaze is forward. We're using our breath to find stability and strength. Inhale. Exhale, we press into the triangle of that left foot, lifting us up into high lunge. Make your adjustments if you need to, shortening your stance. Maybe you just straighten that front leg and take a break for a second. Excuse me. Excellent. Inhale, both arms come up overhead, biceps by the ears. We inhale to grow tall, lengthening through the spine. And exhale, here comes our fluid movement. Front leg stays where it's at. We pivot on the back foot, shining pelvis over towards the right, opening the arms in line with the shoulders. Back arch is in line with the front heel, pelvis right underneath the heart space. We're pressing down and putting weight into the outer edge of the back foot. Inhale to come into our peaceful warrior, back arm drops, front arm lifts. Exhale, we windmill extended side angle. So left hand comes to the inner left arch, or palm down to the mat, or forearm on the thigh, or you take a bind underneath the left leg. Right arm comes up to the ceiling or out towards the front of the mat. Or you can always keep the right hand right on the hip. We stay for the inhale. Exhale, powers our movement right back into warrior two. Legs are strong, they're not moving, our foundation. Exhale, we windmill, pivoting on the back foot, coming back into our low lunge. We inhale, exhale, left foot comes back to meet the right in our downward facing dog. Left foot comes to the midline. This is our last big move that we'll do today. Right knee, so we shift the upper body like we're going to step back up into our low lunge, but instead we're going to drop the right knee behind the right wrist. We pivot the right foot over to the long edge of the left side of the mat. If that doesn't feel good, maybe something starts cramping or you're like, there's no way I'm going to be able to come into what she is about to do. You can always keep the right foot underneath the right glute, okay? So coming into more of a lined up version is going to be less on the hip and on the knee. Otherwise, we'll all swing our right foot over to the left edge of the mat. And gently we start to walk that back leg down towards the earth, finding the sweet spot for our own bodies. Hip bones are squared off to the front of the mat. So if your hip bones are shooting over towards the left corner and you're resting down on the outside of that right hip, that's not something that we want to do today. So if that means that you need to bring a block or a blanket underneath that right hip because there's too much room for you to feel stable between you and the mat, that's perfectly fine. So we sit up nice and tall, shoulders and hip bones are facing the front of the mat. We're very active through the right toes, the right foot, pulling them back towards the shin, protecting that knee. We're pressing down through the top of the back foot. Knee is active on the back leg. That's our foundation. We inhale to grow tall, and exhale, we start to drape belly, chest, and forehead down to the mat. So you've got options here. You can stay in Sphinx pose in the upper body, bringing the elbows right underneath the shoulders, palms of the hands face down. Or maybe you stack palm over palm and rest the head on top of the hands. Maybe fist over fist and rest the forehead on top of the fists. Or maybe you sink the chest and forehead all the way down to the mat, extending the arms out long. We are firm through the left leg and soft in the right hip, allowing that release of muscle tension, release of emotional buildup, sending the breath to our right hip, right glute, right groin, right low back. We stay here for one breath cycle, make it count, deep inhale, and a long exhale. Stay for the inhale. Exhale fuels your movement as we gently start to walk ourselves back to an inverted position. To come out of this, we're going to curl the toes of the back foot, lift the knee of the back leg, shifting us forward slightly. And we move from the hip and from the core to draw the right leg back to meet the left. So you can come into this on the other side from plank, or you send the hips up high and come into it from downward facing dog. It's up to you. But either way, we'll drop the left knee behind the left wrist, active through the left toes, or we bring the left foot underneath the left glute and stay that way. As we start to walk the back leg down towards the earth. Meeting our body where it's at today, which may be different than it was yesterday. It may be different than it's going to be tomorrow. We stay for the inhale, growing nice and tall, rooting down through our foundation, and exhale. We start to melt belly, chest, and forehead to the mat, finding your arm placement, whatever suits you today. Again, it might be different on this side than it was on the other, and that's okay. Really utilizing the breath here, breathing down into the belly. and sending the breath to the left hip. What do you mean sending the breath, Caitlin? Honestly, a simple visualization of all of that beautiful breath in your lungs going down into the left hip. I imagine it encircling the area, allowing it to soften, almost like a sedative, using the breath as a sedative for the muscles, or visualizing it that way. Can do wonders for releasing tension that our body's hanging on to, allowing a release in the muscles. Let's stay for one more breath cycle. Deep inhale. And a long, full exhale. Stay for the inhale. Exhale fuels your movements as we begin to rise back up. We curl the toes of the back leg under, lift the back knee. Left foot comes back to meet the right, but we're going to drop knees onto the mat. We sink the hips back onto the heels and we rise to a kneeling position, allowing the hips to close off after we've opened them. If this is uncomfortable, you can always come into the seated position that we started our practice with, Dandasana, or Paschimottanasana, seated forward fold. But here we'll press into the tops of the feet. We're active through the hamstrings, activating the knees and the thighs, which allows this lift out of the pelvis, this lengthening of the spine. Shoulders are down away from the ears, shoulder blades pinched together. Go ahead and close the eyes. Let's take one more deep breath cycle together. Inhaling through the nose, down into the belly. And a long exhale. We'll end our practice today by taking a moment just to drop the chin to the chest. Thank you for practicing with me today. Go ahead and take any other organic movements that you feel your body needs. Maybe later today, take a nice hot bath with some Epsom salts, or use some hot towels on any sore areas. And if you have questions for me, like always, you can always send them over to Ellie. Otherwise, I will see you guys on Friday.